Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Daily Videodevo. Rene here in my office, and this weekend we asked, does God ever surprise you that His agenda is not your agenda, and His methods are not your methods, and His timing is definitely not your timing? And sometimes Jesus frustrates you and confuses you, just like the people were frustrated and confused by Jesus' actions when He came into Jerusalem in the passage in Mark that we looked at this last weekend. Of course, we've all felt like that. And let me just share with you a time that I felt like this personally. I am sitting in my office, and on my bulletin board next to my desk, I have a photograph of my mom. My mom, Rosemary, was a very fit 80-year-old. She walked and swam every day, was in physically great condition, loved God and loved people, was universally beloved. But she died of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease that crippled her in mind and then even crippled her in body. And believe me, there were many times as we helped to take care of her, along with my sister, that we all asked, our whole family asked, how is this God's will? Why doesn't God answer our prayers for healing? Why did this have to happen to her? Certainly, in those times, God's agenda, God's methods, God's timing did not match ours in any way. And it reminded me of a phrase that St. Teresa of Avila used to say. She would pray, God, you would have more friends if you treated the ones you already had better. Do you ever feel like that? Somebody once told me, Pastor, I could handle all of the suffering in life so much better if I could only see the purpose behind it. I mean, we look at the suffering of Jesus Christ in the Gospels, and we already know the purpose behind it. He was going to be resurrected, and He was going to forgive the sins of the whole world. He was going to begin the redemption of all of creation through His death on the cross. So there's a wonderful purpose behind Christ's suffering we can see, and so it doesn't strike us as absurd. But we have to remember, it struck the disciples as completely absurd. Why would Jesus do that? And so too our sufferings can often strike us as absurd. When that happens, when God's timing and methods and agenda confuses us, basically we have three choices. Number one, we can live in denial and just say, it's not happening, I'm totally fine, no suffering is happening, I'm not being bothered by God at all. Denial. Or number two, we can lapse into a sense of meaninglessness and despair. There is no meaning, there's no purpose, maybe there's no God. Or number three, and of course this is the option I'm recommending, we can say, even though I cannot see the purpose behind this now, I choose to trust that God will work a purpose out through this. Now, I'm not, of course, necessarily saying that all of our suffering is God's perfect will. You know, we live in a broken world, a sin-marred world, and that's why some of us get Alzheimer's disease, like my mother did, sadly. But God never wastes a hurt. God can take whatever tragedy befalls us, and He can use it for something truly good, something that redeems even seemingly absurd suffering. And what you have to do, I think, to get through it is to choose to trust that even though you may never know how God is going to do that in this life, that one day in glory, you'll be able to look back on all of your suffering and the suffering of your loved ones, and you'll be able to see the good that God brought out of it, just as He brought good out of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. You know, there's a great verse in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 5. Paul says, just as we share abundantly in the sufferings of Christ, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. You know what I think he's saying? I think he's saying we all suffer. We all have crosses to bear. Specifically to the Corinthians to whom he was writing, he's saying we specifically have a cross to bear because we're Christians, we're being persecuted. He says we all suffer. But then he says, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. I believe he's saying, just as we can look at the sufferings of Christ and see how they led to the redemption of the world, so also we can trust and be confident that our sufferings too will be used by God in a redemptive purpose, and that comfort can abound through us. So I hope that helps you. if you've got a photo on the wall of your heart or the wall of your house or office, just like I have the photo of my mother, to choose to believe that God will work redemptively even through that, even when his agenda is not yours. You believe that, and I know you really will have a great day.